posters on the wall, got your problems on the wall. All your problems, all your problems, all your feelings. We're supposed to care somehow. Oh, we got your pictures on the wall, got your posters on the wall, got your problems on the wall. Yeah, all your problems, all your problems. We're all working harder, waiting for a good chance to get the distance farther, waiting for a good chance to be no victim or martyr. Say anything to get me out.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Diverge Media. Just a moment as I bring in our guest correspondent. How are you, Paul?
Good. How are you?
Well, you know, it's been an interesting week. As you know, I got a summons for court for merely covering the Brantford event of the No More Lockdowns billboard reveal. So that was interesting. I guess
We talked about it last week.
we did talk about
They
it.
sent it to the wrong guy. I told you I can't get one.
Well, anyway, so yeah, I think what happened was they sent it to Brantford originally, and then they realized like, oh no, he's not there, and they transferred it over and had a peace officer deliver it to the door. So I mean, I plan on challenging it based on the charter, the violations of the charter specifically. Like, there's so many different areas of the charter I feel are engaged. Especially being there in a media capacity and receiving the ticket. Like I had my lanyard on, but listening to kind of David Menzies of Rebels being cited for the same thing, I believe, and in him talking about kind of that process, they said the one they got him on, they said they got him for chuckling and shaking hands with somebody in the crowd. I was like, okay, like if that's where we're gonna draw the line, I'm probably gonna get a visit. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, like where were they? Like, was there even officers on?
Yeah. No, Brantford. When we went, where we were parked, there was like a couple of officers, maybe 50 feet away. And I said to my wife as we were about to leave, I said, I bet you they're taking plates and we're going to get a ticket eventually in the mail. And then I guess that came out to be exactly true. So,
Well, last week I rewatched it. And you literally said, I could have gotten a few of these by now. And it was like 2 days later, it showed up in the mail.
Well, you know, I guess I spoke it into existence. It almost feels like, well, it's one of those things. Like it comes with the territory. I kind of expected it. We've had these conversations behind closed doors. Not to spend too much time on this here, but yeah, no, like we kind of knew it was coming, and we said, well, we're prepared for it, and I guess now we can document the process. So if you're a lawyer or you know a lawyer who's in the process of helping to fight these, we're more than interested in having someone. We were there in an official media capacity. We'd more than love to speak to you about what we were doing, and we have video proof of what we were doing. I guess you could go back and literally listen to everything I said. I know I might have been too friendly. I might have smiled. I might have said some kind things to some people, and I guess that might have been why I got a ticket. We'll find out. I'm interested to hear what the disclosure is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know how much they actually. I think there's just like you were able to be tracked, whereas everybody else was.
We'll hope so.
That was the one. That was the one where the organizers got pulled over on the highway, like right after, right?
The Hildebrands did going home. They got pulled over on the 403. As soon as they hit that, the police were waiting there. Yeah, that was that event, and I guess I was part of the roundup. So I know. A terrible man with a gimbal and a phone being there showing an event outside while thousands can gather, or hundreds and hundreds gather in Costco's and Walmarts across Canada and Ontario. Terrible person. I mean, if this is, if this is where I have to hang my hat, this is the hill I have to die on. So yeah, I'm hoping, like, I'll give you the rundown. Like, I don't want to have to fight this. Nobody does. It's a pain in the ass. And I've had the conversation many times that the court process itself, to me, is a punishment. So, I mean, I hope I challenge it based on the charter and constitution and they just throw it out. But we'll find out. Maybe they want to take that down to the furthest conclusion. And if it comes to that, we'll deal with it. It's not like I'm not informed on the subject and I can't riddle bullet holes in the narrative if they want to go down that path. But we'll see. I'm really not looking forward to it, just so everybody knows.
I imagine nothing's going to come of it.
No, I don't think so either, but it's still like it's something they're kind of, I don't know.
Annoying.
It's just a weird feeling. Yeah, it's like something in the back of your head, right? It does take up space. I'm just trying to be open and transparent about how I'm thinking about this because I don't want people to be like, naive about it, be like, oh, he's so brave and everything. No, like it sucks. I don't want it. But moving on here, a bunch of stuff in the news. So I got a lot to kind of talk about. There's a lot of stuff we shared on Facebook that did really well, and so wanted to share some of those articles and kind of run through them. And so let's start with over 400 Ontario doctors criticizing the provincial decision to keep schools closed until fall. So this is a CBC article. And doctors want a peer review of the modeling that informed the decision on school closures. Big gasp. A review of the modeling? Oh, no. More than 400 doctors signed on that criticized the decision to close the schools to in-person learning this academic year, saying he's prioritizing industry over children. In the June 4th letter, the doctors called for a peer review of the modeling that informed the decision to keep schools closed until September, a return to in-person learning for students registered for summer school, and commitment to restore uninterrupted in-person schooling in September. Your top doctors and pediatric experts in children's health and well-being unanimously weighed in support of return to in-person learning, while educators said the decision was best made by local health experts, the doctors say in the letter. So 400 doctors sign on to this, saying we need to be back in the classroom. This seems like common sense at this point. Kids aren't at risk. Why aren't we back in the classroom? So 400 doctors sign on. What are your thoughts, Paul? I mean, I feel like it's same, but different these days. It's like the same script again and again.
I'd love to think it would actually happen, but I don't think they'll ever allow it. But like, if for optics, for perspective, we're the only province that isn't in school. So they keep claiming modeling. Okay, our modeling that they're referring to is rate of infection based upon mobility. Mobility's up. Case counts are down. So having said that, your modeling doesn't make sense. At this point, it's seasonal. It's been confirmed through studies. It's seasonal. It's part of the nature is taking its course. There's nothing you can do to interrupt that. And we're the only province that isn't. And it's mainly because there's a union tapping them on the shoulder. And if they want a peer review of it, they're going to be found out to be idiots. And then there's going to be more questions asked, like, why did you make this decision? And the answer is going to be, I was paid money to do that. So I don't think they're ever going to allow them in the door. That's, if they have the option to not let them in, there's not a chance in hell that's going to happen.
Well, this has kind of been my thought, is like, I don't think from a political standpoint to be looking at this from a jaded glass, I don't think there's going to be a desire to push back and have you completely return to normal. Because if they do that, I fully expect, at least the way they've been acting, talking about variants and different things again, that come fall and early winter, we will be talking about restrictions and lockdowns again. And so they're trying, I think, in my mind, to slow that down as much as possible to prevent everything from opening, because I don't think people will accept it after things opened up again. Like, this is our third lockdown. We're 16 months into this. I had this conversation with my neighbor, but this is like 15, 16 months now. You don't get to call this an emergency anymore. You don't. No. You've had 15 to 16 months to put money into different things, and we're going to touch on that later, but they had the chance, and they reviewed the budget, and they said, that's too much money. I know that we have more deaths in long-term care homes than any other country in the world, right? but we don't think that's worth investing money in. Instead, we'll pay you to stay at home. Like, what is this about, right? We've been told it's about health, and yet they had a plan to invest in long-term care, and they shut it down because, quote, it's too expensive. But it's not too expensive to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to sit everyone at home. I mean, the media fund got $88 million additional dollars in COVID funding. Our media organizations here in Canada got an additional $88 million. That's just a one-off.
Not us.
Not us.
Mhm.
There's so many examples though of this money going out the door, and they just slap a COVID label on it. And yet we couldn't find the money for long-term care or hospitals. Oh, I imagine most of it was misused, and probably wasn't used efficiently.
Raises that they'll never go back on.
Administrative fees. Well, here, I'll give you another one, Paul. Does this sound normal to you to pay like over $1 million to a charity to close an administrative file?
They do. If you throw
that was the
100
Red
of these
Cross
out,
as a reference. So there's a grant and contribution I looked at, over $1 million. It was a 1-day contract, and it just said to close administrative files. I'm like, but shouldn't that be a part of the previous contract that you paid them for? Like, no, they should be taking care of that. That just seems like somebody got $1 million. And anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, I don't like to further your point. I don't know if we're going into lockdown again come late fall, but I would imagine like these travel restrictions are going to be conversation points still. I don't think like how at this point they can even sit here and argue when our numbers right now are the same as last summer and we have vaccines. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like I don't think it's going to be full lockdown. I think everybody's going to tell everybody to go F themselves at that point. Like, just be like, no. Like, tell a business owner who's had retail closed for 8-ish months on and off that, oh, you got to do it again all winter right before Christmas wave. No, not going to happen.
Well, I did an article recently comparing Florida, Texas, and Nevada to here, and we have far higher vaccination rates. I'm going to pull that up quick for everyone here. Let's do a quick rundown. So if you want to check out this article, COVID-19 by the numbers, Ontario versus Florida, Texas, Nevada. This is really good information. You have the case fatality comparison, everything you need compared right here. So case fatality rates, lowest to highest. Florida has a lower case fatality rate than Ontario. Nevada right behind. And then we have vaccine comparison. Ontario at 71.863% of eligible people. Florida at 55, Texas at 54, Nevada at 46. Now, hint, one of these places is locked down and the other three are open, completely open, no restrictions, no mask mandates, and are having live sporting events. Now, 7-day case averages. Ontario at 568 has more than Nevada, which is a smaller population, has many more cases. So this is like less than 5 million people. 403 cases, so they have a much higher per capita case rate, yet they're wide open. Texas, 7,936 cases, 5,711 from Florida. And so my point is, and then we throw in the ACES pandemic system. This was taken at the time of the article. This was surge capacity by hour. That red is 90 or greater. Orange is 70 to 90. Yellow is 50 to 70. And anything green is under 50. So that's the state of your hospitals here in Ontario for ICU surge capacity.
Given that under 80 is considered good.
Yeah.
You need that for perspective.
They have created capacity, but like for reference, they created capacity, and now when it hits 100, they claim the sky's falling. Whereas before, they never created capacity, and they would have 120, 130, 140% of capacity at peak times during bad virus seasons, and they wouldn't say anything. They would try to keep that hush-hush out of the media. And now it's, again, tell me this is not about a virus without saying this isn't about a virus. Like, I'll pull up, here's another picture. I shared it on the Facebook page, but it's circulating right now. All right, tell me it isn't about a virus without saying it isn't about a virus. So we have Justin Trudeau, 1 elderly person, 2 elderly person, 3 elderly person, 4 elderly person. Meanwhile, their servants at the same event were masked up. The young people that were there serving. But this is our prime minister overseas. Does he seem concerned that he's going to kill grandma, aka the queen? Sorry. I'm sorry. We've been saying we're going to kill grandma the whole time. So he's there right beside the queen. He's not masked up. He doesn't seem concerned. So tell me this is not about a virus. Like, it can't be anymore.
Yep. And then this is on the heels of Dr. Tam telling you that you need to follow restrictions even if you're double vaccinated, and he's single vaccinated. And then he puts on a mask for a show and then heads indoors, takes it off. And now he's just gotten rid of it altogether. So at this point, if you don't want to follow any of the rules, don't, because like the guys who were telling you these things aren't doing it. He didn't quarantine either when he went there.
Nope. And then and not on the way back. And then didn't he attend a vigil coming straight back from the UK?
He went to the vigil, then to the UK immediately. So he was with 1,000 people, and next day flies out.
Well, they said 10,000, Paul. They said 10,000.
Oh,
so I'll take them at their word. It was 10,000 he was without quarantine, and then he went. But again, this is the point. Like, it's a double standard, and you have these people saying, this is what I would challenge people who don't want to chalk it up. They immediately say tinfoil hat and things like this. Well, then what is it about? Because other countries are opening up now, and they're not talking the way we are. Meanwhile, it seems like we're doubling down on this. Again, we have higher vaccination rates in Florida, Texas, Nevada, and we're not even able. I can't get my hair cut. That's Ontario right now. But meanwhile, like over there, I could go watch a Texas game with 70,000 people. I could go watch Rangers play.
Sounds fantastic.
It does. It sounds great. Not the Rangers, but it's
just torture at this point. Just to watch everybody else around the planet live their lives, and Canadians are just going broke, printing more money, inflation, unemployment going up, housing costs going up. They changed the stress test on the mortgages as well, so that'll tamper with mortgage rates and approvals. But yeah, no, like how much longer do we really need to shoot ourselves in the feet before we decide we want to walk? Like, you know what I mean? Yep. Like, we're at over 9% now unemployment, and EI and CERB is still a thing. Once that money runs out, are these guys going to run back to the workplace? Well, no, because there's a lot of businesses that aren't there anymore. Go take a drive. Go take a drive in Toronto and watch all the closed businesses. And
I'll dare say, though, there's a lot of people that it wouldn't even be like about opportunity. If they had the chance to go back to a job, they're going to be conditioned and used to taking a handout. It's 15 months at this point. If you've been sitting at home this entire time, I don't know that all those people, even if they had the opportunity, would go back. I think a lot of them might just sit at home and continue to take the money if they could pay their bills. That's the key, right? As long as it's enough, then I might just stay at home and play video games.
Yeah, what's the incentive? Like, if you can't go out and make like $25 an hour, taking $2,000 a month home is like, I get all my free time to myself, and I still.
Well, this is what's crazy about CERB is $2,000 a month take home. I was making $24.75 an hour working as an operator at a factory, and my take home was like $2,200 a month. So imagine that. That was a pretty good job. I made more money than a lot of people I knew at the time, and that was still like just like, oh, hey, Greg, go work 160 hours plus this month so that you can make $200 more than the person that's staying home. That's literally kind of the paradigm we've created here, and no one's thinking about it being an issue. It's like that is very clearly an issue. The Conservatives have raised the issue on that a little bit about the need for CERB to go, but the States is experiencing the same type of thing. A lot of governments went quickly to hand out free money, and then the rush didn't stop.
Free. You're going to see how free it is. I don't know if you've noticed the pricing of things these days, but they're continually going up. Gas is like $1.30 a liter here.
$1.33 the other day for me. I don't know. If everybody here, we got 26 in, let us know the gas prices and where you're coming from across the country. Let us know. I just think it's going to be interesting. We'll read them out, some of the gas prices here that you've been experiencing in the last week. So we're sitting like, I was $1.33 here in Kitchener. You're in Brantford.
131.
131. Jeez. And so this is, and then you pay home heating is the thing that scares me more too. Like I can kind of you can kind of tailor like how much you're going to drive. Like you can tamp that down usually some,
but depends like outside of work. No, but
yeah, but like you can't really do that with home heating. Like I want to not be cold. Okay, the heat stays at 70 then. Like that's okay, you're going to pay X amount. Like it's getting crazy expensive. I don't know what home heating bills are, but like we had I was over $100 last winter, like $130 a month for the home heating it costs, which is like unheard of for me. I was usually used to paying 60 or 70. We got $130 in London, $133.9 in Windsor, $124 Mount Forest, Ontario. Well, we know where we need to go. Apparently, save some money going to Mount Forest if you're in the area. But yeah, it's crazy. And Dan McTagg, if you haven't seen that interview that we did, the gas price wizard, he's talking about these issues, and it just blows me away. We have the cleanest oil here in all of the world, but yet our government pretends like it's somehow ethical, like a Mark Carney getting grilled by Pierre Poilievre. It's somehow ethical to put pipelines in the United Arab Emirates, where he has $100 billion in investments. He has $60 billion here, but he's like, oh, I got lots of investments here. Yeah, you got more there. So they're okay doing that kind of stuff over there, but they're not okay doing it here. It makes no sense. You have big lobby interests trying to act like Canada's oil is dirty, and it's anything but. We should be producing as much oil as we can and shipping it everywhere in the world that has massive populations that doesn't produce it clean or ethically, like in India, like in China. Like, it makes no sense to me. And then we could use that money to pay down this stupid spending we've been doing. That seems like it would just be logical to me as a Canadian thinking about my future in my country. But apparently that is not the case here with our politicians. They seem to be more than content going higher and higher with the gas prices. $124.9 to $131.9 here a liter in Waterloo. Jeez. $150 outside Vancouver.
Well, your first problem is you're near Vancouver.
I knew you were gonna say something. I was waiting for it. It's like the setup.
If I moved my house to Vancouver, I think it'd be worth $7 million.
At least.
It's like this is a 1960s 1,100 square foot home, no backyard. It's not worth what I paid for it.
It's a Vancouver gym.
But it's a starter home in Vancouver. How?
Well, I was like over $19 billion in 2019 went into foreign investment into the real estate market. And a lot of that's concentrated in Toronto and Vancouver. So you can imagine $19 billion between like a few key cities, how much damage that does to inflating the real estate market in the area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You should try Gas Buddy. We had him on, Marianne. We had, Gas Buddy. Wait, no, that's something else. Sorry.
No, McTagg, he's part of it, isn't he?
Is that Gas Buddy him? Oh,
I think he's involved.
You continue. I need my charger.
I think he's involved with Gas Buddy. I think his whole shtick has been to get affordable pricing for Canadians. So I believe he's part of that. Yeah, he's been working with Line 5. I still follow him on Twitter. I know there was an article he posted the other day about an institute that has basically come out and said, yeah, maybe we don't go to like net zero because like
insanity.
It's actually not possible. Like you'll die. Like it's one thing when you think of all the countries who have gone to like solar and wind, and first of all, they have rolling blackouts. Mm-hmm. Secondly, they're warm. Try doing that in Northern Ontario or anywhere in Canada in the middle of the winter. A rolling blackout means you die in your sleep.
You get no sun for a couple of weeks. You're done, man.
Like it's not possible.
And this is another thing the environmental groups completely miss is like our entire infrastructure is based on oil, is based on a certain way of doing things. And now you're talking about a different way where we're going to have to completely revamp that system. And they don't seem to acknowledge that. And it's just like, no, it's hundreds of billions of dollars plus your equipment that you need to change out. And it doesn't work, by the way. And it needs oil to be able to be produced. Like you need oil to be able to produce a windmill. How messed up is that? And by the way, look up China, Toxic Lake in China, everyone, and look up solar panels. And that's kind of where they're mining the minerals that are needed for these solar panels. They don't care about the environmental standards. And the new reports coming out, get this, Paul, are showing that the reason solar panels were so cheap was not due to manufacturing efficiencies that they were finding. No. It was due to the slave labor and cheap raw materials they were able to source. Ding! Thanks, China. So they're finding out that it's not as cheap as it was originally sold.
It's just not where it needs to be. It's in infant stages. Like, I mean, there's a lot of unethical crap that goes on in the world in every industry in terms of slave labor. Let's be honest, and how they go about circumvent like anything in the water. You're in the middle of the ocean. People are dumping stuff all the time, and no one's getting caught for it. Let's be honest. But like this is what the world seems to be these days. Just woke catchphrases like, "You don't want to be a polluter. Oil and gas is bad."
That's right.
Stop that. Let's put a windmill up. And then when you actually dig into it, it's like,
hey,
wow, I didn't realize how bad it was to actually make these. Oh, they also start on fire. How many birds did we kill with this?
Birdie.
Yeah, like
they say an average, I think it's like 3 to 5 a year per windmill. They don't talk about that very much. And I also found something in the Environmental Standards Act that if you put up a piece of machinery that's causing damage to wildlife, they're not supposed to allow that to continue. But ergo, it's green technology, so it's A-okay. We can kill as many birds as required to give you that sweet green energy.
You're the government, so you make the one exception is the one thing we want to do.
Hey, Paul, 10 out of 10 government experts say exactly what we tell them to say.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I feel about extreme climate change. I'm sorry. If you're a catastrophic climate changer believer, you're not in the right place. I don't believe I need to give my government money and give them control of the economy in order to save the planet from carbon, which plants eat and grow from, that aren't also accounted in the models, that the more CO2 is pumped out, the more plants actually take it in and they grow more, which means they also take in more CO2. That's not a calculation in the models. And I did this to a college professor when I was at college, and I completely shattered his entire universe in about 2 minutes. And he walked away from me like McLovin to try to, he's like, I got a class to go to. He's doing one of these. I don't want to be a part of this no more.
It's alarmism. And I don't understand why I feel like I've talked about this before, but I don't understand why they're taking this route of alarmism. Like, it only helps you now. It isn't going to help you down the road when, like, you have the list come out of all the things you said that were going to happen, the D-days that you listed, and none of them happened. And then you change the date, and it didn't happen. Then you change the story, and it didn't happen. And then, like, Al Gore's documentary, they changed the date on that 3 times. It was like 2015, then it was 2017, then it was 2018. And then people just stopped asking because they're like, this guy's an idiot. So
Man Bear Pig, you remember the South Park episode? Guys, it's totally real. That was
like carbon warms the planet. Warming the planet, well, they're kind of unsure of if it's part of the Earth's cycle, because we've never lived long enough or recorded it long enough to know if it goes through ice ages, heat waves. But should we be doing something just in case? Sure. Should we be going to the extremes? No.
Well, that's where you can put out.
We need to we need to. Like I said, these other industries are in their infant stages. Like, let's just kind of give them a percentage of the sector until they figure their crap out. And then if people want it, come get it. Capitalism 101. If it's affordable. But if you want me to switch all my shit to electric, guess what? Have you seen our hydro prices? I'm broke. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Have you seen inflation? Guess what? Take my paycheck. I'm just going to quit and ride serve then. Because I can't afford anything. I'm going to go live in a box. Hopefully I can use a space heater that's plugged into something and just live there. Because that's about all you can afford.
And I've said this for a long time. Like, if the sky is falling, we need to save the planet. Kumbaya, we all need to come together. Humans are selfish. Pay me. Make it profitable for numero uno. And I think
see it both ways. Like, I get that, like, they're like, well, if it's not, you should do it for the goodness of your heart. Well, if it's not profitable, we're not going to do it. And all of a sudden that guy's a bad guy. Well, guess what? nothing on this planet would exist if there wasn't a monetary incentive to it. You think that cell phone in your hand would exist if there wasn't millions of dollars attached to inventing it?
There is something about
No.
disincentivizing systems.
So you
But-
take it away, guess what? People get lazy. Well, what's the point?
But my point on this is like if they say solar and wind and we need clean alternative technologies, then why don't you incentivize it? For how much money are governments willing to waste? Like, why
I
don't you
think
run a
there's-
contest and throw 50 million out and say, if you can increase the efficiency of solar by X amount, hey, wind, if you can find a battery that can actually take this capacity and store it, then we'll pay you our X amount.
I think tax credits changed for that sector for this coming year. So they have kind of incentivized it. Like I invest. I'm a casual investor. I'm one of those guys. And I've seen everyone talking about all the tax breaks for the EV and green sector. So it's like put all your money in it because everybody else is going to start building. So it's probably coming, but it's just like it'll work for a couple of years until no one wants to buy your crap.
I don't think it's even going to work for a couple of years. Dan McTagg's pointed out, like there's 12,000 vehicles sitting at the Ford dealership or the Ford manufacturing plant in Oakville right now because they don't got chips. There's a worldwide chip shortage right now, and electric cars are more chip intensive.
Yeah, which
And-
I don't understand because Tesla's building like crazy.
Yeah, they probably have better access to supply chains for that kind of thing. I would imagine.
I know there was a fire that messed it up a bit, and I was hearing that like Apple came in and bought a ton. They probably just came in and just said, "We'll pay you quadruple the price. We want them." But I think like I'm not like that well versed on the subject, but like it seems kind of like pandemic related as well. There's a whole lot of issues, but the whole industry's been like kind of like rolling shutdowns. Like GM was down for a bit, Ford was down for a bit, Toyota was down for a bit. Everybody but Tesla, actually. It's like I know Ford's trying to roll out EVs in the next couple of years, and they've kind of pumped brakes on that. Because same thing, they don't have chips. So they don't want to put them into stuff that isn't really going to sell yet because it's not trialed, right?
Well, it makes sense. I'm not saying it's because of COVID. It's because of the shutdowns. It's because of supply chain disruptions. And I mean, there's probably more to that as well. Whereas like you'd have to look at the raw source materials. Has some certain country been hoarding the materials and trying to drive the price up? Like you have to ask these questions, and China's a big sourcer of that material. So that's why I asked the question. But let's get back into the articles here and kind of stay on point. Back to the news, I guess. All right, so we got Tedros. This was one that people were very interested in on the Facebook page. But Tedros Adhanom, WHO chief, may face genocide charges. This was the times.co.uk. This was December 14th, 2020. But David Steinman accused him, Tedros, who took over the World Health Organization 3 years ago, being one of the officials in control of the Ethiopian security services from 2013 to 2015. So he was the country's health minister from 2005 to 2012 and its foreign minister until 2016, when his Tigray People's Liberation Front Party was the main member of the ruling coalition. So that is kind of in the news. But what are you thinking about Tedros? Do you think there will be accountability for these high-level people? I mean, we started exploring some of the sole source contracts, and we're starting to peel back the layers on some of them, and you see the connections. But what do you think? Is it going to matter?
No, I don't think so. These guys are damn near untouchable.
Where
do you try him? Where do you try him? In his own country? In that country? Do we? I don't know. And then even then, it's like it's at arm's reach with these guys. They always like delegate and make other people do the dirty work. But power corrupts. There's no doubt in my mind that these guys got blood on their hands somewhere around the world. Like the largest organizations in the world are involved in the dirtiest of stuff. And even when they try to be good, they just profit from it. Like mental health. Bell Let's Talk. Hey, hashtag Bell Let's Talk. Next day, they laid off like 200 people. What was it, TSN 1050? They walked in the middle of their broadcast and just told them to get out.
Well, it's these big corporate.
That was after they took government handout for over $100 million and paid it to shareholders. So,
Yeah,
hey, hashtag Bell Let's Talk, guys. We're doing something.
it's not to knock on one corporate entity. It's just it's become a pattern where you have these corporations that just profit on the flavor of the day, the outrage of the day. Oh, what will sell? And then they come in and they're the snake oil salesman. They put on like the makeup. Well, how do I need to act and dress? And that's how they're going to act and dress, because they see dollar signs. And that's not a knock on anyone. It's just, if you look at the way corporations are structured, you start selling stocks, they want dividends. Pay me dividends. And I always say that what happens, in my opinion, is that good companies, they kind of do this trajectory where they go straight up for a long time, and then eventually they will plateau, and that's when they start doing dirty stuff. Well, we're going to peel back some of the benefits because that will save us a bunch of money, and then we get a 0.5% kickback on the year. It's just what I've noticed. The bigger the company is, the longer they're around. Eventually they run out of efficiencies and growth, and it becomes much harder to do that. Then they actually look at inwards and seem to look at benefits and those type of things.
CEOs usually get fired at that point. They bring in a new one. Everybody has confidence in the new CEO, so they invest more money. More money is driven into the company. They do this, and this with it. Repeat. As long as you keep making money and keep selling things, you can do those things. But that's the natural cycle of like the big business, right?
Oh, as somebody who's worked in a share of big business, yeah, it is the natural cycle, and it's kind of one of those uncomfortable things a lot of people don't think about. But yeah, you got stockholders that you got to drive a profit, and sometimes businesses don't do that in the greatest of ways. And sometimes they'll do things like lobby governments to get beneficial legislation in their favor and things like this. And this is how our government gets entangled with some very
like China.
Yeah, things that you shouldn't be entangled with.
How awkward was it, do you think, for Trudeau to be at the G7 summit and have Biden give a speech about how they can limit China's reach because of the genocide they have? He was probably like, "Oh."
I thought you were gonna. That's not where I thought you were going with that. I thought you were gonna say, "How embarrassing was it to be Trudeau and have to watch Biden give a speech?" And that's all I thought you were gonna say.
Geriatric Joe has been known to give a hell of a speech. So
can Justin go? No, Justin, you stay there. Joe, Mr. Biden speaking. He's got some important things.
It's gonna be a while.
You know the thing. All right, sorry.
That literally happened. Like that. Those are the things that literally happen. Is all right. We're so in bed. Trudeau's so in bed with China. He has to sit there awkwardly at a G7 while Biden talks about how we need to stop China because their government is horrible and they commit genocide and they have re-education camps, and I'm sure they have slave labor, and I'm sure they circumvent rules constantly, and their carbon output's the highest on the planet. And and he has to sit there being like, yeah, everything's fine.
China polluted more than the entire developed world combined. Mike,
it's like
there's nothing else. Yeah, there's nothing.
It's like a third of the world. Well, that's not even like the biggest issue, right? The fact is that they got re-education camps for Muslims. Like,
hey, yeah, no, and it how oh my goodness, how are we gonna pretend like we're virtuous and about caring about the Muslim community when you're one of the trade partners you keep driving trade with no conditions on literally puts 1 million plus Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps to re-educate them. And also there was the
and then Trudeau didn't
program they had to prevent them from having birth too. The Uyghur woman, they were basically causing them to forcibly be prevented from having pregnancies, and prevent what is that called? The surgery. I don't know why I'm blanking on that name.
And then they take away their religion.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to practice your religion. And then our own prime minister didn't even bother to show up to vote to say that it was genocide because he can't have his hands dirty because he's in bed with them.
Oh, I can't come out and say that. But
and then goes to London and tells us all how great we have to treat Muslim people, which treat them with fairness. Yes.
The same way you treat.
But is it genuine coming out of his mouth when these things are happening on his watch? No, he's an idiot, and he's just trying to save face and get some of the Muslim vote back. That's all it was. That's all we knew it was. It got politicized out the gate, and it was a damn shame.
No, I'm sorry for the family's loss. That gets lost in all this. This is why it pisses me off.
That's why you need to stay away. Like, these guys need to stay away because it gets the
That's
whole
my
meaning.
point. What are you doing there? What are you doing there? As a politician, I'll tell you what I'm not doing is showing, you know what, if I'm actually concerned, I might send a private email or call them and say,
Or pay for the funeral.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not showing up to make a PR stunt of it. And make no mistake, come on, it was a PR stunt. Thank goodness they at least booed Ford, but they should all have been booed.
Yeah, I mean, even just sit in the crowd and just be there. Don't give a speech.
Yeah, sit down, shut up, right?
Yeah, like
there's no reason for you to be speaking and virtue signaling to the world.
Yeah,
it bothers me.
It was a damn shame, and like right away I was like,
nah.
This is no good. Like it was, and then Jagmeet just telling everybody that all of Canada is racist, and if you walk down the street as a Muslim, you'll get killed. Like, yeah, no, that's not the case. And you can ask anyone who's come from somewhere that's actually racist what they think of Canada, and they'll be like, man, it's so much better here.
It's like it bothers. Yeah, of course, racism exists in Canada, Jagmeet.
It exists.
It's not systemically
everywhere.
racist. It exists everywhere. But again, I don't think this country is anywhere close to being a systemically racist country. Cue the outrage culture. But come on, we have. And another thing, stop erasing history. You're destroying all these statues. All you're doing is destroying the history. You're trying to prove a lesson from it. You might actually have some legitimate points on some of these. But you destroy the history and you're just allowing for a rewrite. You don't allow for the learning curve to happen, the lesson of the history to continue. I say don't change the statue, change the plaque if it bothers you that much. If it's truthful and we can actually acknowledge that there is times that our history is a little tainted and jaded, and we could look at it and there is some legitimate points to be made on some of these. But my goodness, taking it to the extreme, let's tear it all down. And you're just allowing something else is going to be put in its place. That's all that's going to happen.
And then they sit there and tell you that, you know, we need to do something to help the Muslim community, which is like, what in the hell is the government going to do to help stop Islamophobia?
Any community.
What are they actually going to do to stop racism?
Please
tax it? Are they going to tax it? Like, what the hell are you actually going to do?
Yeah, tax it. That's the solution to everything. We can solve the entire climate change issue if you just pay more money. So we can just name the problem. Tax that. You know, Frank's. Just put Franks on that shit. Just tax that shit.
Yeah,
that's the government's approach to everything.
I put tax on everything. Yeah,
I put tax on.
Not to like make light of the situation, but for real, what are they gonna do to fix it? Nothing. They're probably gonna try and teach something in school that says accept everybody, but at the end of the day, it's not going to fix it. You literally went to war for years and told everybody how everyone from Middle East is horrible, right? And everything that everybody in this country and the United States saw on television from that part of the world was horrible. To back that up, there's going to be some sort of bias in some people's eyes, and it's very minimal here, which is impressive. But what are you actually going to do to fix the problem you essentially created? Like,
they don't have solutions. They have virtue signals that sound good.
Yeah, it's just woke catchphrases. It's like, again, you go back to that tweet. Who was it? His politician's husband or ex-husband, who's just been bashing Trudeau, and he talks about what if you want to know what Trudeau's going to do, whatever is the easiest, takes the less time, and puts him on television and make it seems like he actually cares when he doesn't. That's what he's going to do. That's why he was at the vigil, and that's why he gave a speech and said, I'm so sorry for this. Yeah, like,
give Trudeau
what did you accomplish?
Yeah, well, give him credit where credit's due. He's the master of perception. He is a PR freaking phenom. Give him credit where credit's due. Like,
I'd be a PR phenom if I gave $500 million to the media. Like, yeah, I shot an 18. I shot an 18 at my last round yesterday. Like, just put it on the news, guys. I shot an 18. It was a 5,400-yard course, and I shot 18 on it.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
Should have seen it. Right off the hop, hole in one. Continued it on 18 holes.
Speaking of which, I actually have this up for everyone. We're going to pull this up. Speaking of the media bailout, I don't know if everybody knew. So this is related to COVID. If you type in COVID and value and sort by value, the number one actually went to the Canada Media Fund. And $222 million to fund high-quality Canadian television programs that are originally broadcast on Canadian television services, now being made available on digital services. So $222 million goes out this way, and $88,750,000 of it is just COVID funding. So these guys got a hefty payday. Let me go back. When was that? April 1st, 2020. So literally right at the beginning of the lockdown. Like 3 days later, April 4th was their first complete lockdown. 3 days later.
Why did they need it? Why did they need it though? Why? Like honestly, COVID was like the biggest news cycle for the last year. You should have been generating more revenue naturally than ever before because of what everybody needs to know. Is school open? Is school closed? In my business, like everybody's checking the news constantly. Every day. Watching these press conferences constantly. You didn't need a handout. You were going to make more money regardless, just like everyone else in the inner circle.
Good question, Paul. Why did they get more money? Why did they get $88 million more? Why did they get that money 3 days before we went into our first official lockdown?
So that we can hear how Trudeau shot an 18, man. Like, that's really what it is. So he can look good.
So we can hear how Trudeau shot an 18.
Like, it's funny because, like, you hear in the news cycle that Trudeau is well liked by Canadians, and then the polling says that he's going to lose this next election by a mile. And it's like, what? Yeah, like it's just like at some point you actually have to be good at your job, even if you brainwash everybody or try to brainwash everybody into thinking the Liberals are great. They eventually realize I'm broke. Things cost a lot. I don't like that. Maybe the next guy will fix it.
Oh, he'll at least promise to fix it, right? That's kind of how that goes.
At least you can be mad about it. But if you're just going to be $1 trillion in debt and their next budget's going to spend even more, you might as well just turn the gun and shoot it yourself.
Okay, so let's get back to some stats here. I got the ACES pandemic tracker because our system is overwhelmed. The system is overwhelmed, Paul. So we just want to show you how overwhelmed it is because that's the government should want us to know, right? So this is live, updated every hour. I'm just going to refresh it so it's the newest data. Let's walk through the surge capacity data of Ontario hospitals. Again, this is the ACES pandemic tracker. So if you could do ACES pandemic tracker, you should be able to find it. This is the Ontario acute care surge monitor. So number of hospitals by surge status last hour, less than 50, 101 of them. 50 to 70, 40 of them. 70 to 90, 10. 90 or equals 6. Again, I'll ask, does that sound like we should still be in stage 1? We have this map here. We have one hospital that we can see in the red, but all these green are under 50% surge capacity. So again, I really don't know how we're still going on the same narrative. It's getting harder and harder when you look at the data.
Because the data's hidden and the average person doesn't seek it out.
And even if it gets smacked in their face, they think the person presenting it is the problem, not the information itself, because then I might be wrong and have to confront some internal dilemmas of how I feel about things. That's what it really comes down to.
No one can change their mind at all. If I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. Presented new information, 99% of people won't. And, that's really what it's been, because this information has been available the entirety of the pandemic. And it's like we had field hospitals that sat empty. Guess who got the contract? Let's not talk about that. How much money we threw at SNC-Lavalin and never used the damn field hospitals. Shocker. I know. They did nothing and got paid for it.
And what's bothersome about that is some people will go, it's better to have it and not need it. You're an idiot. Okay, that's like buying a used car, putting it in your garage and letting it sit there, the rust, and then being like, we didn't use it. Time to sell it. Like you could have invested in the car you already had that needed parts upgraded, and you could have upgraded the parts and got doctors and nurses and ventilation. You could have put money there, but you didn't.
Yeah, and then it takes away capacity when you put these field hospitals in. So now you subtract the capacity and the percentages look worse. When are you going to do that? When it's convenient. When I need to sell the idea that we need to do something, I'm going to pull the field hospitals and go, look, surge capacity went up like crazy.
This is kind of the MO of everything that's happened with COVID, though, is it's like under the guise of night. For instance, we have that Reaching Home article. We'll touch on it quick here. So Reaching Home it's a government homelessness program. Check out this article. It's an analysis government homelessness program amended to allow funds to be spent on COVID-19 instead. So they had this program. It's for homelessness. All these dots here, all these pin drops are cities directly that received funds from the government under this program. And they changed it so that you can use these funds to basically just anything with a COVID label attached. You could use it for EI, you can use it for CRB, CRSB, CRCB, mortgage payment deferrals, waiving interest on student loans, hiring doctors, nurses, sanitizer equipment, gloves, masks, you name it. So I've messaged off to Toronto to get the records there. But dig into that article. Over $340 million was committed. This is one program. This is why I say this. They smack a COVID label on it. It was for homelessness. Hey, smack. There's a COVID label. Now you guys can use it free and clear for pretty much whatever you want, so long as it meets the criteria. And nobody really knows that they changed it. I don't think most people know that 37 cities, including ours here in Waterloo, got almost $5 million. Toronto got 150 plus million in 2019, and then another 52 million in 2020. And here's the catch on this Reaching Home story, everyone. They almost every single one of these cities received the funding. Wait for it. 2 days before, again, April 1st, April 4th, we're in lockdown. April 1st, they received their funds. I'm not saying they're related. I'll leave you to do with that information what you will. But again, they received the funds, and then 3 days later, we're in a full lockdown. That's what the facts are.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know how much the government cares about homelessness, you can look no further than Quebec when they went into curfew and they shut down their homeless shelters for capacity for COVID. And one of the members a homeless man went to actually enter the facility, and they had to turn him away even though the facility was empty. He then, in the middle of the winter, went into a porta potty to try and stay warm. They found him dead the next day. So instead of going inside where it was warm and empty, he couldn't in the name of COVID, and he died. So if you think for a second they genuinely care about solving this problem, they do not. And that's a real story you can look up that happened this winter in Quebec. And sad. And that's where we're at with this whole, like, if this is why we do what we do. I'm tired of hearing about these stories that just senseless BS. No one has the courage. No one has the guts to do what's right anymore in this world. And it drives you nuts. And it's like, well, why didn't, now that's on your conscience. Now it's on your hands. You knew you should have, you didn't, you thought you'd get scolded. Well, guess what? I've been scolded 1,000 times in my life. What's 1,001? So what? I gave a guy a hot meal and a bed to lay in for the night. Like, oh no, bad. I'm sorry, I'm so bad.
Yeah, if you got to pick a hill. There's no other way to put it. Like, you can't sugar. You got to pick a hill. Where's your moral hill? What hill are you figuratively willing to die on because it's the freaking right thing to do? Not letting a man go back into the freezing, frigid cold to die would be one of them.
Yeah,
this is what we
feel like. Knowing that he's homeless, knowing that it's like negative 20 Celsius outside.
Plus wind.
It's like, yeah, just come in, man. Like, warm up, do what you gotta do. We'll tuck you away in the back corner, away from people so that you're distanced because of COVID. Whatever you gotta do. And then deal with the repercussion in the morning. If you gotta take a write-up from your employer, you take a write-up. It is what it is. But that's where we're at. Like, there's no morals in this country anymore. And I guess everybody learned it from the government because no one's doing the right thing anymore. No one. It seems no one is. Like you just said how much money went out to solve homelessness under the guise of COVID, and they took the restrictions off of it. Well, where did that money go? You damn well know it didn't go to actually solve homelessness.
Well, this is my suspicion.
And then where's the paper trail? Do we not get? Let's get an FOI out there. No one wants to do it.
Already do. So we got an FOI out on this story. Please share it out. Not enough people know about this. This Reaching Home program is just it's the tip of the iceberg. It is literally something that I can point to be like, hey, if you look underneath that and you keep looking, there's a lot more of that kind of stuff happening.
Yeah, just peel it back a little bit and you're peeking behind the curtain and you see everything's like this. Like every single thing, if you dig deep enough, it's like this.
Well, I will tell you, okay, I'm not stretching the truth here when I say that when I do research sometimes and you peel back the layers and you realize how interconnected things are. This person has a partner who's partnered with this partner who's partnered with that partner, but it looks like they didn't get any benefit out of it, but they did.
Yeah.
And it will churn your stomach when you realize these lobbyists that are lobbying our government for funds, how interconnected they are. And let's go on the next story. So I've done a couple big research pieces. That Reaching Home one through over $340 million rerouted to COVID spending. And we're trying to figure out at least where Toronto spent it, because that was over $200 million of the dollars spent. But here's another story that we broke, and it's kind of going by the wayside, and it shouldn't be, because it is just another example of this kind of web and what happens, in my opinion. So $200 million. Trudeau has given $200 million to the Asian Development Bank. The trustees of the projects on this development bank that are responsible for these funds have past ties to the Aga Khan. Yeah, that Aga Khan, the scandal Aga Khan, the private vacation at his private island Aga Khan, who lobbies his government for money Aga Khan with his Aga Khan Development Foundation Aga Khan. That guy. So they give $200 million to him. So they have all these programs. So every single one of these programs I went through and I said, who's the trustee? What's their background professionally? Start peeling back the layer and I find the Aga Khan connection. So what does that mean? Well, the Asian Development Bank is literally listed as a partner on the Aga Khan Development Foundation website. So that's pretty obvious, but it gets worse. It gets more in depth. They have a memorandum of understanding between the two organizations that says they will, quote, explore the additional potential of co-financing private sector investments together, and that they will, quote, explore options for utilizing established trust funds like the ones we gave to the Asian Development Fund to achieve joint priorities. Does that sound like they're not at all, like they're arm's length, like they don't know each other? No, they have a memorandum of understanding that says they might even co-finance together and use the established trust funds to achieve their joint priorities. So that's just that. And then we get into the trustees themselves. You have Hashini Mozad Azim, economist at the Aga Khan Rural Support Program. Tariq Samia, she worked at BRAC Bank, and BRAC Bank is partnered with the Aga Khan Fund for Economic Development. And so she's the trustee of Spectra Power. Then we have Han Wang Myong. She's vice president of City Investment Bank. Citibank has a foundation called the City Foundation, which is listed as a partner of the Aga Khan Development Foundation. So we get, like, again, it's always arm length, right? Last one here, Haru Ahmad Kawaja used to work at KPMG Accounting. It appears to be connected. We come down here, KPMG corporate team captain, right from the LinkedIn. Aga Khan Foundation of Canada. Nath Kiran worked at Tata Capital. Tata Capital owns 3.74% of the shares in the Aga Khan Fund for Economic Development. Again, so it's like at arm's length, but you can see that these partners are listed. They have every single one of the trustees listed on these projects had a background at the Aga Khan Foundation. They have an open memorandum of understanding between the two organizations. And here's my frustration as a journalist. I broke this story and no one cares. So if this is the state of Canada where you have a journalist that's going to dig at these facts and he can't even get a couple hundred views on his article, we're in trouble. If $340 million going out the door and potentially being misused doesn't even get the glance of the Canadian public anymore, we're screwed. If things like this with the Aga Khan connections and the trustees and different things doesn't get the Canadian population's attention, we're screwed. So I sent that off to Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party and said, hey, you might want to look into this, because it's that Aga Khan. But again, we know what happened with the last scandal, and it went nowhere.
Yep. Yeah, like you said, it's at arm's reach. So there'll be a lot of assumptions that need to be made to get there, but it's so obvious, right? Like in a
Well,
court
yeah,
of
it
law,
doesn't
it
mean they're
wouldn't
doing
hold up.
anything. To
But
be very clear, it doesn't mean they're doing anything. But where there's smoke, oftentimes there's fire, and it just seems like there was smoke there when you're looking at the history, and the trustees all have a past volunteer or job history with the foundation, and then they have an open memorandum of understanding, say they may even invest together. I'm just saying, it kind of smells like doo-doo.
straight up just tell you we're in cahoots.
Oh,
Yeah, we're getting some funding and we're buddies about it, and we're going to use it to achieve our goals together.
maybe, just possibly, maybe. It doesn't say for sure. It says maybe. It's the legalese that it blows me away. It doesn't stop. And like I could go through it. I highly recommend going on grants and contributions. Just go grants and contributions, OpenGov Canada, and type in COVID and sort by value and see how much money's gone out. Like right here, I'm looking at 171 million, Paul, that went out to Ryerson University. Okay, you ready for this? Went out to Ryerson University, just so people know I'm not pulling the chain, and for establishing will objectives related to something COVID, apparently, because they slap a COVID label on it and it gets funding. So I think that's for maybe a work partnership program. They got 171 million for. That's one there. There's another one they got. We got United Way of Canada got $156 million to serve vulnerable Canadians during the COVID-19 pandemic. So here's an FOI that needs to happen that we'll put out. 156 million. Where did it get spent to help vulnerable Canadians? 156 million gone. Here's, you could just keep going down another 156 million to them, 129 million to keep less than 19,000 fishermen at home, 111 million for another community foundation for helping vulnerable Canadians. Like, you can just keep going down this list and you'll see, like, Red Cross, they got 80 million for helping serve vulnerable Canadians. So that's like 300 million right there to serve vulnerable Canadians.
Isn't that their job?
Yeah, isn't that what they get paid to do?
Isn't that what their whole premise is? What are we? I don't. What do you say, man? Like, I would say I'm surprised, but I'm not.
It's worse when you see it. It's one thing to be like, yeah, I bet you my government's like wasting the funds. It's another to have that first-hand account and see it on the website of the contracts.
Did any of that money go to retired military personnel, disabled military personnel?
No. I mean, no, I haven't seen. There might have been a small COVID bump, but not anything major. It's not showing at the top of that list.
But it's again, if you type in the woke catchphrases,
gender is a big one. A lot of gender studies overseas.
But it's even like indigenous.
Yep,
Type in the word indigenous and want to guess how much money the indigenous people actually get out of it?
Actually, well, this is a slippery slope, but let's do that. So
hey, let's go back to when the Kamloops story broke. Trudeau literally stood in our faces and told us, we're going to do something concrete. Anything happened since then?
Yeah. So
he when he was first running for prime minister, he said he'd get them running water because a lot of these communities don't have running water. Want to guess if they have running water now?
I think you know the answer.
But it sounds great on paper to be like, I want to help this small sector of our population, the indigenous community, because government's literally been slaughtering them. And in re-education camps, let's not get it twisted, that's what they are, trying to strip them of their language and their beliefs and make them white. And then, now they're just a woke catchphrase that sounds good on paper. We're doing good. Pat yourself on the back.
Pats on the backs, boys. On this topic, we'll come back to these grants contributions. So Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, as soon as Trudeau got into power, they went from getting 20 million a year, and then Trudeau got elected, they got 500 million for a 5-year contract. Wait, no, 6-year contract. So like, this is approximately 80% of these funds will be used to provide and procure and deliver vaccines requested by countries for their national immunization programs. The remaining 20% of funds will be provided to the countries to strengthen their national health systems. Yeah, so that's $500 million to Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, in 2015, as soon as Trudeau got in. But again, this is where if you want accountability in government, you should go in, you should look, and then you FOI. How was the money actually spent? That's my question in all these. It's like maybe the money was used incredibly well and it was worth it. But that's a lot of money, and my gut feeling says probably not.
I imagine like everything that gets written, 80% of it's already spent on crap, like just administrative fees and paperwork. And
well, that's where they say they can say
inflated
80% of
wages.
it is for procurement, but it doesn't mean it goes to vaccines. Procurement also means the staff to procure the vaccines. So here's all this fun legalese where they hide the real shit that's happening. And then you have to find the actual agreements on the actual websites, because they are required to list them, is my understanding, like in some way, shape, or form. They have to list the funding arrangements and how they work. So you can find them. And that's how I found the Asian Development Bank funding and all the ties there. But anyways, this has been a good Sunday show, and I feel like we're at a good place to close it off.
We could literally talk about crappy government spending until we died, but we'll stop here.
we could literally probably hammer out another hour, no problem, just talking about, terrible government spending. Mainstream media out there doing nothing. Well, we're doing our best. All right, everyone. So I want to talk about something that I'm working on. I haven't really talked. Well, we've talked a little bit about this, Paul, but we have a documentary. I'm going to make the first official announcement here that is going to be coming out. Now, the goal is to have it out by the end of September, because my thoughts are right around the end of September, we might be talking about another round of restrictions or another lockdown possibly. So it would be good to have this video out. But the narrative is going to be, we've been covering these live events of no more lockdowns, of different protest groups all together for the last year and a half. We're going to combine that footage with our research and our narrative, and I'm kind of going to do like a TED Talk style of a documentary mixed in with the footage and different interviews we're going to do. So I'm going to be reaching out to some politicians that have been heavily involved, reaching out to some doctors, the Justice Center. I'll be reaching out to them. Hopefully we can get everybody on board and put out a solid documentary of kind of the reality of what Canada and Ontario specifically has been facing. So look for that. We're going to be taking ticket sales on that in the future. And again, end of September, we're starting to get the B-roll and A-roll footage all trimmed up and ready to go on that. And if you can support us, we have hats, as you can see Paul wearing, and we have Media is a Virus shirt. It is custom made. Check those out. $35, even tax included, just plus shipping and handling. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.